are you running for council?
Because I've lived in Austin now for a little over 35 years. And Austin has changed. It's got to a point where it's not the Austin I moved to. I'm tired of the way the city council does things. You know, this is supposed to be Texas, and it feels like we're more in California. And we need to get back to basics. This city council, or not, I'm not saying this city council, but city councils in the past, I don't think it's been honest the way they've done things. They're not straightforward. You know, take for the bond issue right now. They are saying it's only going to cost us $56 a year, but they're not telling you the reason it's going to cost that much is because we had other bonds that are being paid off, and the money that we were paying for those bonds are going to be financing this bond. So it's actually costing us more money because we would have been saving money because the bonds are being paid off. They do a lot of bait and switch.
You said this is not the Austin that you moved to, and it's more like California than Texas. What do
No,
you mean by that?
what I mean by that is if you kind of look at, you see something, California is doing something, the next thing you see somebody on our city council is proposing that kind of proposal. Mm-hmm. And I'm worried that the city of Austin is going to go into a lot of debt like California. We're going more and more liberal, and I think we need to be going more towards the center, not being super conservative, not being super liberal. I think we need to be more of a neutral city. We need to start really planning on the way we have growth. We need to look at, make the big decisions on roads, not this piecemeal stuff that we're doing. We need to look at the whole options. We need to get back to the basics on how to run the city.
Mm-hmm. So you've run before, back in 2014, correct?
Yes.
Finished 7th out of 8.
My goal was not to come in last place, and I met my goal.
What do you think you've done that has improved your chances between then and now?
I think not having as many people running, because when we had 8 people running, it was really hard to get your message across. You got lost in the crowd. You know, when we go to a forum, you have 30 seconds because you got 8 people answering the same question. You cannot explain. At least this time around, we have a few more minutes and we have a little better chance. And I think more people are looking at and seeing how the city council is running. Are they pleased with Greg? Are they not pleased with Greg? I'm getting a lot more action this time around.
Personally, what do you think about the job Councilman Casar has done during his time on the council?
There are some things I do agree with Greg, but there are things like...
Such as what?
When he was helping the people in the mobile homes being evicted, I don't have a problem with so much the eviction, but I have problems with the way it was handled, where they weren't given enough time. Because I believe when you sign a contract, you have to abide by the contract. But I do believe Greg, because this guy, the way I was reading how that stuff was doing, they were not giving him a chance to move out and doing stuff like that. So I'm for Greg on that. But I'm against Greg where we're talking about where the city's going to pay him up to $4,500 for moving expenses. Mm-hmm. That should not really be a city function.
Mm-hmm. You have said that one of your big issues you would like to tackle if you're elected is transportation. We hear so much about the traffic in Austin. How would you fix that problem?
There are many different ways. In Austin, we need east-west thoroughfares. We need to expand our roads, and I know that's a bad omen for a lot of people talking about expanding roads, because a lot of people want to basically shrink the roads and force people to go on bicycles. But we need to expand the roads. If you look at a city this size, and you go look at the main thoroughfare going down 35, it's basically, for the most part, it's only 3 lanes. You go to Houston, anywhere else, you see a lot more lanes. We have to have more traffic flow through it. I believe, like Don Zimmerman, we do need a loop around the city, a true loop, not like we have out there at 360 that going way out there. We need a better looping system in this town.
Where does the money for that come from?
The money's going to have to come from the state, it's going to have to come from the feds, and it's going to have to come locally. Mm-hmm. You know, I've been asked on the bond issue, do I support the bond? And we're looking at, I wish the package would have been broken up into 3 different packages. But when we're looking at the road improvements, that's basically $450 million. And it's going to help some internal intersections, but I don't know if that's really the best bang for a buck. I think it's gonna hurt business. But I do believe on like part of the bond where we're matching money with the state to do improvements on certain highways. I am for that. I am for, I'd be for spending a lot more money if we're gonna get a bigger bang for the buck.
It's interesting because you have described yourself as a libertarian-leaning Republican, but these types
I
of
consider myself more conservative than, I don't put the panel on that I'm a Republican, but I would say I probably lean more towards libertarian.
Well, I bring that up because typically some of the projects you've talked about, some of these big infrastructure spending projects, sometimes tend to be more left-leaning projects, but you think that that's still something we need in the city of Austin, that kind of spending, I should say.
I believe, and when I talk about spending, is we spend our money on, do we get the biggest bang for the buck? There are a lot of things we spend our money for. You go look at water treatment plant number 4. I deal with that stuff on a day-to-day basis, and I talk to other cities and tell how much we spent on it, and they kind of laughed. They said, we could have built that thing for a third of the price. Go look at the new library. We're spending a fortune on a library, which I'd rather seen the money, if we're going to spend that kind of money, to go over to the local libraries than spending money just for a few people to be able to drink their coffee and look out at Town Lake, or Lady Bird Lake.
So you laid out some examples there. Is that where you think the city, where we're wasting the most money?
We're wasting money, I think, all through the city. I think we need to be careful in how we spend the money. We need to make sure the money that we're spending is going for what it's supposed to be. To me, it's like beautification comes second. We need to get down to the basics and make sure we take care of the problems. We need to make sure we take care of the basic problems first before we start looking at some of the other stuff.
So then how can you fix that then?
I look at it as being an engineer and being conservative. I will look at how we spend every dime. And we make sure that we are spending the money on something that we need to spend the money on and not on some pet projects. We need a lot of things in this city. We need to spend a lot of money, but we need to make sure that we're spending the money wisely. And I don't think the city council, I don't think they have the expertise to even know what they're spending on. Go look at the tunnel. That's becoming a boondoggle. And it was really supposed to be set up to help businesses down there, and I'm not sure if that's ever going to happen.
The council, as it's currently constructed, were you be elected, you wouldn't have a lot of fellow conservatives on there, so how do you then bridge that gap with the more left-leaning members of the council?
You have to start somewhere, and you have to start putting pressure on the existing city council members to express why they want to do this and why they want to spend the money. I have no problems asking questions, and I have no problems answering questions. I've been doing that all my life. If you want to know why I voted on certain things, I will tell you why and what the reasons behind it. And I will expect my city council members to do it. But I will work with them. One of the things I'm known in the engineering community is as a problem solver. I work with a lot of people to help solve problems.
You also mentioned affordable housing as a big issue you think is facing this city. What could you do to fix that?
Well, one of the things that I would like to see fixed is the building code needs to be fixed. They got code next. I am worried about the way it's coming out. No one's really seen it. I've only seen little pieces of this and little pieces of that. I'm worried. The city needs to consolidate. Anytime you have a rule and where you've done amendments and stuff like this, you need to come out about every 20 years and just flush it and start over and have a clean set of codes. And that's what I hope Code Next is going to do. I am surprised that we spent $2 million and now the group wants another $2 million. It shouldn't have taken as long as it's doing. But we need to have to fix the building code to make it more attractive. I talk to people all over the state, and a lot of people don't want to come to Austin because it costs too much. It's too much red tape to build. Austin needs to build about 15,000 living units every year just to keep up with the current growth rate. And I think last year, my numbers, and I may be off, they said they only built 4,000 living units, and we need to be filming 15,000. So we have a major supply and demand. But we need to look at it. If you go look in District 4, we don't have that many unused acreage.
Mm-hmm.
We have about 100 acres that we can probably do for residential. We have some more commercial acreage that we may be able to convert over to apartments and stuff like this. But we're kind of landlocked, and we're almost fully developed in District 4.
You mentioned the land development code. Specifically, what's one thing you could do that you think that we could change that would help get buildings built faster and streamline?
Well, I think we need to streamline the permitting process. One of the things that I get complaints about for my job with the state is the city of Austin is not consistent when people come out and review stuff or how they review it. We need to make sure that when you go to the city council, I mean not city council, but go to the city offices, get your permits, get your stuff reviewed, that if you go to Tom, Dick, or Harry, you're going to get the same answer from Tom, Dick, and Harry. Everybody's going to review it the same. Everybody's trained the same. So everybody knows.
You're talking in terms of plans and
inspections
and things
stuff like that. Yeah. And that's a big part because it takes forever to get your projects approved in the city.
Now, the district that you are in, there are quite a few people in that district that are now kind of also starting to realize the gains of our housing market here. It hasn't just been over on the west side. They're now starting to make some money. Somebody in that district, what would you do if they said to them, hey, my value is starting to go up in our property. Why are we trying to suppress home values at this point?
You have to look at, you go look in in District 4, you go look at a certain subdivision, the land is more than the house. A few years ago, the land value was say $30,000. Now that land value is $200,000. So you're looking at a tax rate that went from, say, you're maybe paying $2,000, $3,000. Now you're paying $10,000 in taxes because the value of the land has gone up. The question is, you can sell it, you make a profit, but then you're going to have to leave town. But a lot of people cannot afford a tax bill that's $10,000 a year. So you have to weigh, when you look at every decision, you have a plus and a minus. You have to be able to look at both sides of the coins. And that's one of the things I think a lot of people in this town only look at one side of the coin, they don't look at the other. As an engineer, I'm trained to look at both sides. I'm trained to look at a big problem, break it down to a bunch of small problems and solve them that way.
What would you say to a constituent in your district who is happy with the job Councilman Casar has done? What would you tell them to try to win their vote?
I would ask them, why are they happy with him? What did he do that solved your problems? Because council member, he has proposed several things, and I think it's not really helping. If you're living in the subdivision, which he helps slow you down, I'm not going to be able to win those voters. Other ones, people are upset with him from everything from where he basically X'd the box, and being somebody that hires, it's like and state doesn't be affected, but if I was hiring and I had to wait to the last project to see if this person has a criminal record, it's not fair for that person or me to go all the way to the end if I find out I can't hire him. But when somebody does mark that box, I go see what the problem is, and if it's somebody can hire, I don't even consider that if that's a problem.
The other issue that you have said, and you've already kind of touched on it, but streamlining the city government is another one of your goals. Let's say you get in there, you get the position day one. What's the first part you attack?
Well, remember, the city council does not do it. I have to work with the new city manager and work with their staff to try to help streamline that process.
Sure, but where do you see is the biggest opportunity to streamline?
I think if we get into consistency, reduce some of the regulations, come out with the new code so everybody knows where it's going to be, and we should be able to streamline. I was at a deal yesterday in which we're talking to people and they were saying, oh, we rely on the engineer's seal, or we're going to hire more people, or we're going to do this. What we need is to have a standard set of rules in which everybody can look at, consistent training for the reviews, so everybody knows what's going to happen when they come to City Hall, and we should be able to get the process through. It shouldn't take us long, and we need to cut out a lot of the red tape and all the extra review processes. Mm-hmm. We need to streamline. If, like, you got a project, you get reviewed by this committee, then it goes to this committee, then it goes to this committee. We need to take that out. We have one lead committee. These other ones, if they want to comment, they can put comments over here so we can get the process done instead of going through 3 or 4 committees.
Can you point to another city in Texas and say, hey, we should be more like them?
We need to be more like Houston or San Antonio because their processes, talking to developers, are a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the problem is it's really hard to compare apples and oranges from one city to another because Austin has a lot more regulations. They're set up different than, say, San Antonio. Houston, it's a little lax in some of that stuff, but they still have their process and they have their deals. So you got to take the best of everything. I don't want to set up a process like the state did a few years ago in which they went streamlining their process, went from 180 days to 300 days.
What would you say to somebody who says, we don't want to be like Houston, we don't want to be like San Antonio, we want to be Austin?
And then you're going to see you're going to have a lot of red tape. We have the environmental committee, we have this committee, we have this committee. It's like going through, it's like you said you're from California. To try to get a permit in California is a headache because you got to go through all the different boards. That's why a lot of people don't like to do stuff in California. And we're set up similar to the way some things in California are set up.
Anything else you'd like to add or anything important that we didn't touch on?
There's a lot of things. There's a lot of problems on the district. And we can be here probably for hours, but I think that we probably cover the high points.
All right, Mr. Herrin, thank you so much.